All right, guys, welcome back. Today we have a guest that I have been waiting for. Nothing against Aiden, but I've been waiting for this because I really want to get into this whiskey and I really want to talk about it. We have Aiden with Natterjack Irish Whiskey, and like I said, I've been waiting to get into this one. We're going to talk about their brand, their stuff. We're going to dip into a couple of their whiskeys and see kind of what it's all about. I've heard good things, so don't let me down, Aiden. Please, it's all you.
I won't let you down, I promise. On it up on a story that's taken us around the world, and with some fights and some mountains to climb in the middle. But yeah, it's been great. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. I know we've been emailing back and forth, a little inside baseball, but we've been emailing back and forth trying to get a schedule set up. And, who would have thought y'all guys were going to be busy in the month of March because of, St. Patty's Day and all the things. So, it happens and we made it work. And now you're here and I'm glad for it. And those of y'all who are tuning in for the first time, I write down a bunch of notes because sometimes I get a little off topic, and so we're gonna try and keep it going. And Aiden, let's start at the beginning. What kind of got you into whiskey? Let's talk about whiskey to begin with. Actually, if we're gonna start, let's open the bottle, right? I don't know where I'm at. There we go. We got the. I can't ever work the camera angles. It's like I'm a young child, I guess, at heart. Don't know how to do it.
While you open that, I'll tell you, that PET closure is really hard to open for a very particular reason. We in 2019 we shipped a biggest order we ever got was to ship to China from Ireland, and we dipped the bottles, the kind of unique bottles. We dipped the top of them with wax, and we sent them off to China. But we didn't put any closure on them. The wax. Now, the thing is, the route to China from Ireland is through the Panama Canal in July, which is hot. So the whiskey expanded, the wax melted, and all of the bottles were lost. The Chinese said when it arrived, it smelled absolutely amazing. It was all gone. Now we turned
but they couldn't taste it.
Exactly. And they were like, they came back and they're like, we lost the whole container. And they're like, what are you going to do? And what we did was we said, well, if your next order is 3 containers, well, then we'll cover this one. And they said, okay. So we turned a loss-making situation into a better situation. And look, your story about the start of this, right? We can talk about what I did in the past, all those sorts of things. So that's covered elsewhere. I think for me, the interesting part of this is Irish whiskey. I was at 35, loved going out, didn't have a favorite Irish whiskey, had a favorite bourbon. I was like, that seems strange. Why is that, right? Like, what is it about the Irish whiskey space, and what is it about the flavor profile that's missed me? Because if it's missed me, it must have missed a load of people. And so I had a favorite bourbon, which was Old Yeller, and it's not Old Yeller. It was Elijah Craig. What's Old Yeller?
Well, that's a movie.
Yeah, it's not a whiskey. Maybe it should be. That could be our thing. But I had a favorite bourbon, but not a favorite Irish whiskey. And I was like, well, maybe I can go and do that, right? And so it started with the idea of a flavor profile. Then I met Jordan Vi, who's the master distiller who at that stage was at Breckenridge. I met him when I came to Louisville to learn how to make bourbon, because I was like, I gotta start somewhere. He was teaching the course. He said, what do you need? And I was like, I told my plan. I had the picture of the Toad, the Natterjack Toad, a really cool brand. It was going to be an Irish whiskey, we spoke about the different flavor profiles we could do as we were going to build a distillery, and it was all great. I went and spent a month living in Breckenridge. We came up with our flavor profile, and it was magical. And we spent a couple of years, myself and Jordan, working on the blend. And that's where we kind of ended up, right? Is an Irish whiskey that has all the traits of Irish. So super smooth, triple distilled, lots of malty notes, real great length on the finish. But with let's call it out, the vanilla, the oak, and the citrus that is out of that first extraction from virgin oak. And this was Jordan's genius. He was like, look, the way we're going to do this is we're going to take 3.5-year-old liquid. We're going to put it into virgin oak casks, but we're going to really ramp the char up. And then let's see what happens. And so we waited, and we ramped the char up to char number 4. And we sourced the barrels out of Seguin Moreau in Napa. And really, we kind of took it from there. Like at that stage, we didn't quite know where we were going to end up with it. And we ended up in really a cool place when we launched in February 2019. And so I'm not supposed to tell this story, but the first trade show I ever went to was long before we ever had whiskey. And I poured a half a bottle of Jameson and a half a bottle of Breckenridge rye into a bottle with a toad on it. And I said, this is what my flavor profile will look like. We launched in 2019. So just to be clear, this was like 2016, right?
Okay.
So we didn't have any, I'd never bought bulk whiskey. I didn't know anything about distilling. It was before I'd met Jordan. It was like, this is kind of what I want to do. And and that was where I knew I wanted to end up. And I remember speaking to Jordan. I was like, are we going to be able to do this, to get that kind of, because to get that smoothness of the Jameson, but then that real little bit of spice, it wasn't hot, it's spice that the rye gives. And
right.
And he's like, well, I don't know about that, but I can certainly get the rounded edges. And so what we ended up with Natterjack was the flavor profile of lots of that oak and vanilla, but it's triple distilled, but it's even smoother than other triple distilled Irish whiskeys, because that virgin oak, it really takes, it rounds off those edges on the mid palate.
It really does. It really does. And I will tell you, this is the first time I was waiting to get with you to even open these, because I was trying to be a good boy and not dip into them. And I can tell you that I'm glad I waited to have this dram with you, because it is magical. And if you look on the screen, it's sitting at 40%. So it's not, but you can definitely have the depth of flavor in the nose and palate that is just, it's bringing something really, it's very much Irish, but it's also bringing something a little bit different. I love it. I love it so far.
And it's a gateway drug. If you're big into your bourbons, it's a gateway into Irish. And if you're big into your Irish, it's a gateway in. But actually, and once again, things I'm not supposed to say, I need media training, I think. But
it's okay.
A lot of the people who we'll never convince, right? They're older, they prefer Irish whiskey to be a certain way. Well, not being funny, but they're leaving the sector in a box, right? And who I'm going after is people coming to the sector. I want to be the Irish welcome to the people who are coming to brown spirits, right? Have a taste of this. It's super smooth. It's the lowest alcohol we can do. Irish whiskey can't be lower than 40%.
Right.
And it's like, just have this as a first step. Really ease into it. And as an old friend of mine once said, and it's a great line about Natterjack, it's great drinking whiskey. It's there for you all evening. It does not go away. It's probably too light to be that end of the night drink where you're like, right, my taste buds have had a fillet of beef, and I've had I've had a tiramisu, and I've probably had Irish coffee. Like, probably Natterjack number 1 isn't where you go after that. There might be cask strength, there might be something else. But for me, it's that, it's an early afternoon whiskey. It's great, easy drinking whiskey with loads of flavor and loads to keep it interesting. So
that's awesome. And I don't know if y'all saw me. I was pouring a little bit more, because I just poured a small sample, and I'm like, I need to dive into this a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, to me, it gives me all of the I'm big into Irish, and I love all the Irish whiskeys that are out there that I can get a hold of. Obviously, Ireland is similar to, which there's not a whole lot of distilleries there. There used to be, but now they're coming back. But Ireland's a lot like Canada. They keep all the good stuff for themselves, so they're getting better about shipping. But yeah, no, go ahead.
That's really interesting what you say, right? I find one of the weakest parts of Irish whiskey is the domestic market, right? And what I mean is, if you go into a bar in Kentucky, right, and like a good, like a high end whiskey bar, right, you're going in and you're seeing single barrel makers, oat, mash bill, Buffalo Trace, right? You're seeing celebrations of Kentucky whiskey, right? Mm-hmm. And if you go in the same in Skye or in Northern Scotland, right? You go into those bars, you're not going to find a bottle of Natterjack, and you're not going to find a bottle of bourbon in Scotland or like in those serious whiskey places, and the same in Kentucky. But a thing I have is in Irish bars, you'll find it. We don't have, and we need to get it, but we don't have that same of loyalty in country. So yeah, there's loads of really interesting releases and stuff like that. But as far as I'm concerned, what we should be doing is championing our own products the way Scotland and the US does, and then export and grow. But when someone comes in and they want bourbon in a bar in Ireland, they should be handing them a Natterjack and say, this is kind of in that direction. Right. Like otherwise the globalization of the flavor profile means you're not experiencing something local. And I live in Austin now, and it's my first question when I go into a bar out for dinner. It's like, what have you got that's local? Mm-hmm. And there's a real movement towards that, and Ireland needs to get better at that. Absolutely. Because I mean, if you're not supporting local, and I am really big on not only local but like craft as well. That I have a lot of craft distilleries that come on here, for one, because they'll answer an email, and for two, because I've tried with Buffalo Trace and all them, they won't even answer my email. But at the same time, they're doing cool and interesting things. So, and they're doing different things, and they're using locally sourced ingredients. You know, all of the things. They're employing local people so that they can get the job done. So it's only right for a specific country to do the same. So if you can be the forefront for Ireland, that's great. With this whiskey at the forefront, I feel like you can do that. I really do. Yeah, hopefully. And I think it's as you know, as we discussed beforehand, we source our liquid from Great Northern Distillery. We do all the finishing and blending and the barrel picking and everything ourselves, but the distillation process is done for us in Great Northern. Now, that's amazing because there's some structural differences in Ireland around starting a distillery, right? So the craft distilling boom in the US has revolutionized brown spirits, right? Like, I mean, volume was always there with the big boys, sure. But when you think about where Breckenridge, where I trained, started, or you look at Hudson, which eventually got acquired, or you look at Chip Tate down at Balcones back in the day, right? Yep. They started off with stills that were not sized for commerce, right? They were on. I think Chip Tate was on like a fire heated still that was maybe double-digit gallons and started off and then grew it from there. In Ireland, that's not possible because of historical poaching laws to stop us blinding ourselves with distillate made at home. There was limits on the size of still you could have, and that means that as in a floor, and it was 1,200 liters. Now, yeah, so they're big, right? And then triple distilled, so traditionally you go for 3. So your outlay for that amount of kit at the lowest possible level, before you think about the fire regulations, and before you think about storing the whiskey, before you think about a bonded warehouse and everything, you're probably looking at about $3.5 million just for the kit of building, right? So if you think about that, right? If you're in my position, you got back in the day, back in 2017, I had a half a bottle of Jameson and half a bottle of Breckenridge in a bottle. I had a funky looking toad on the front. I had no whiskey experience. I had no industry experience, and I had no money, right? So who's going to give me 8 million to build a distillery on the off chance that the brand works? So you got to reimagine the journey that you're on, and that was hard because I found a site, fell in love with the site. I worked really hard to try and get it over the line, and lost it after COVID. And like, because I desperately want a distillery, and I desperately wanted a distillery, and it wasn't to be during this iteration of where we are, but it will be in the future. And just to give you an idea of why I felt like that, like when I quit my old job, the 9 to 5 or whatever, I went on this journey, and that was part of where I met Jordan. But part of that trip involved going to Detroit with some friends, and we went to the Two James Distillery, which is in Corktown, in the shadow of the old train station, the incredible building in Detroit, right, from back in the glory days of the 50s, right?
Right.
I remember I walked in, and there was like a girl and 5 guys standing around, and they were playing around with a cask, and they were boxing something up to be sold. And the place smelled of hops, it smelled of distillate, and it smelled of oak. And I was like, I have arrived. Get me in. Now, what Two James were doing at the time is, and it's changed now, I went back recently and it's a completely different operation, but what they were doing at the time is they were distilling some there, and then they were, like us, they were packaging some MGPI or wherever they were sourcing some source liquid, and they built a brand that way. And so the barrier to us to getting to where they are because of those still size restrictions meant we've got a different kind of journey that we're on, and that's where we are at the moment. And it's still very much in my focus and on my visualization boards. That I don't have visualization boards, but if I had, there'd be a distillery on there, because I truly believe a spirit needs a home, and what we've got to do is in the interim is build that kind of velocity and get the name out there, and then the distillery comes afterwards, and we work out how we marry those two at a later date.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Because I mean, like you say, you got to start somewhere. And if you don't have the millions of dollars to get started, just jump in where you can. And if this is you jumping in where you can, you got a pretty good start ahead of you. Because I found you guys, good Lord, it's been a while back. Have never saw the product. And then a couple of people on Instagram or whatever were talking about it, and I just kind of went down that rabbit hole. And next thing you know, here you are. So it's like it's one of those things that, like you say, get the brand out there, get the recognition out there, and then the rest just kind of follows. And that's amazing that you're at this point already, because I know I've talked to a lot of people, and I know that 2020 really knocked a lot of people on their butt, especially these smaller craft distilleries and people trying to produce product. When you can't produce it or you're shut down, it makes it really difficult. And a lot of them they never came back. So yeah, it's.
And Randall, we very nearly didn't. We ended up in an existential fight towards the end of 2021, and really that we, by all rights, we shouldn't be where we are. Right. Some things came together and some timings worked for us, and we managed to refinance the business and that sort of stuff. But we made, we made the not the cardinal sin, but a huge error that a lot of startups who are raising money make. Right. And that is that we took at the start any money rather than the right money.
Absolutely.
And the problem with that is because you're desperate, and we're a startup, you want to get going. You're like, someone offers you a deal, you're like, let's do it. And it turns out that person isn't an appropriate business partner for you. And it's really easy for me to sit here and say I know that now. Had you told me that back in 2018 when we were signing the deal, I'd say, well, show me the other deals that you've got for me, right? And that's the truth. Is we weren't swimming in people who saying, here's loads of money, go and do this. We had this one option on the table, and it got us going. But it turned out that relationship broke down, and that kind of forced us into a difficult spot towards the end of 2022.
that's really the story of a lot of people. They're struggling, and that just for not even people in the distilling world, people in life. We're out here fighting, trying to make it work, and we have a good idea. We have a thing that we think is really cool, and we want people to see it. And then you can't get the funding for it, or the funding you get is crap and it falls through, or people promise things to you and they don't deliver on their promise. And that's a big one. And I know that gets off on a tangent, but at the same time, it's all about following through and, making, and unfortunately now you guys are making the sacrifice to kind of build back again from that. Yeah, it's a hard deal, but moving forward, I guess that's all you can do, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you're so right? The story, what we went through is reminiscent of what people go through in life all the time, right? It can be relationships, it can be buying or selling a house, it can be sickness in your family, it can be something bad happening at your job, or something great happening at your job. But the perseverance it takes, it's not just blind going after it, right? It's asking yourself on the regular, is this still a good idea, right? Is this still something I should be putting all my energy in? Because let's face it, right? Everything in life, interactions with other humans comes down to energy, right? So you and I today, right, for this podcast, we're bringing energy, right? If I turn up to this and I'm like, I've had a shit day, and you're like, well, I've booked some time here, and I'm like, yeah, look, whiskey business it's grand, it's a pain in the hole, things haven't gone well. You're like, well, my listeners don't want to hear that, right? This is about bringing energy, right? Yeah. And that I realized is every interaction I have is about the energy that I bring to the table as the leader of the brand, leader of the organization, and it's really important that I don't lose sight of that fact, and also that that it's genuine, the energy that I bring. Yes. I'll tell you, the reason this comes to focus is over Christmas, things kind of shut down. If you're a producer in the alcohol space, right? October, November, December, no one really takes your calls. You're planning for next year. You want to speak to distributors. They don't want to speak to you. So there's this kind of weird, everyone's like, you must be out the door for Christmas. And you're like, we're really not. Everything got done in October, and it's kind of a quiet time. And my family were over from Ireland. As I say, we live in Austin now. So we have 15 people staying in the house, right? And the PR team wanted a call. And it was like, I'm going to guess it was the 28th of December. We have 15 people in the house. I have 3 young kids, had not slept. I remember I came down and I was, had not slept from partying reasons. I had not slept because kids were getting sick. It was a shit show, right? I'm sorry. I'm sure your listeners are like, whatever. But so I come down and I try and do a call, and I just realized I didn't have the energy for it. So I'm sitting there with our incredible PR team, right? And they're like, how's everything going? And I was like, it happens so rarely, Randall. I was like, it's not good. And I was like, I shouldn't be on this call, right, guys? I'm really sorry. Last night was just a bit of a mess. So I just went off the call, and 2 days later, apologized, back at it. And I'm sure they were like, what the hell was that all about? But it's so important. And it's so important that I turn up to those calls, and because I need the team to turn up, right? If Scott is doing this, I need him to turn up. And if Vanessa is doing it, I need them to turn up. And if I don't turn up, I can't expect them to. And so the energy that it takes to kind of keep that going is really what you bring to the table and what you try and get out of other people.
Absolutely. And the listeners will know my struggles through all that, and just trying to be the best version of yourself at that time. Like, you might be going through a struggle, you might be going through an issue, but you have to present, because you're producing a product just like I am doing this podcast, right? I'm producing a product. I can't be on here and be like, sorry guys, yeah, no, I'm not feeling it today. I'm doing it, but I'm not feeling it. You can't do that. You have to push the product that you want. And if you're not pushing the right product, maybe you shouldn't do it. Like, maybe I shouldn't be on this call type thing, So it's really, and it affects life in general. It's not just, You know, like I always tell people, whiskey's a catalyst, but at the same time, life is happening. You know, so like, you know, it is what it is, man. Some days we just ain't got it, and then but you have to push yourself as brand ambassador or whatever to do the thing. You have to do the thing if you want the brand to grow and to be positive in the environment. You have to push it, and I commend you for that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So go ahead.
Well, we were kind of talking about the genesis of how we got to blend one, right? And there's an overarching guidance here for when we produce whiskey. Is it has to be different, right? So I went to Whiskey Live in Ireland years back, and like in 2019 we just launched. We only had one product, and everyone else at every other table had 6, right? And they tended to have the same, which was Pedro Jimenez finished 8-year-old single malt, a Tokai. I'm just pulling names out of the sky, right? And so they had like a 5, an 8, a 12, a 21, and a 30-year-old, right? And that was kind of their portfolio. And I was struck as that was going on that everyone's portfolio was by and large the same, because we were all sourced of stock, right? And that's fine. And all of their whiskeys were older than ours. Ours was 4.5 years, and then they were kind of starting at 5. They all had older stock, and they were all following Scotch, in my eyes, down a path of provenance, right? Which is age statement equals better quality equals more expensive. Now, let's be honest, we have a critter whiskey, right? There's no way around it, right? We've got a critter on the front of the bottle. But I got into drinking because drinking's great fun.
Absolutely.
I didn't get into drinking to navel gaze about how incredible our 21-year-old single malt is, or to make people, or more importantly, I didn't get into it to make people feel uncomfortable by my knowledge of the sector and by my skill set as a blender, whatever. I got into it because I want people to enjoy themselves and enjoy themselves in a fun, like from a sensory perspective as well. Yeah, I want them to laugh their asses off. I want them to not spend a huge amount of money, and I want them to feel like they had a good time. And that's kind of the be all and end all of it for us. And so it's different spirit that's fun. And so when we were raising money during the difficult times of COVID and the kind of our world was falling apart, I got feedback from someone we'd spoke to about some investments, right? And he said, I should put it on the wall, actually. I don't remember the exact, I'm paraphrasing, but the line was basically, it seems like these guys' point of differentiation is only a frog and fun. And that doesn't seem like a big enough point of differentiation in a world where we can get 18-year-old single malt for $100 a bottle. But I was like, yeah, he's dead right. But he's fundamentally misunderstood me. What he said as a negative is exactly why I started this business. And he only sees it as a negative. And I was like, that's what we're doing. Thank you. This is amazing. So, yeah.
That is amazing. That you can take somebody's quote unquote negative comment and turn it into kind of like your trademark, kind of, you know, because I always tell people, and this is not about me, this is about y'all, but I always tell people, whiskey is there. It's a thing. It's not like something that we need to, you know, get all crazy about. Like it's literally just for 2 men sitting around talking, having a drink. That's what it's for. Or, you know, or you're celebrating something, pour you a glass, you know, something like that. It's not to be bougie. It's not to be like, hey, I've got the whole Pappy line. I've got, you know, like nobody cares. I mean, people care, obviously. People watch them and they have millions of views, but nobody cares. Drink the whiskey and shut up. That's how I feel.
Yeah. And don't, whatever you do, don't keep it, because I've been hit by enough buses, and I've actually been hit by buses, but I've been hit by enough buses to know that we're not going to be here forever, right? And it might all be over this evening. And if you've got that bottle, that, you know, that's what Sideways is about, right? He ends up drinking the, whatever that bottle is, he ends up drinking it in a fast food restaurant. And I'm like, just the poetry and motion of that. Sorry if that's a spoiler for Sideways, but I suspect Sideways might have had its moment at this stage.
It might have.
That's the point, isn't it? It's alcohol in the form of pints, wine, or spirits is about the interaction you're having with people. It's so much less about what's in the bottle as to what's going on around the bottle and around the glass. And that's what I mean when I say Natterjack is the welcome of Irish whiskey, right? It's like, come on in, have it with us, and then go and do whatever you want. Go and drink a 21-year-old. Like I don't mind, but come and see us, and we'll, we never say no to a drink with anyone.
Right, exactly. You skimmed past something. You just said you got hit by a bus.
Yeah. So I was.
Okay, tell that story. I know that doesn't fit in, but tell that story because you made my brain stop there for a second. What do you got hit by a bus?
I was cycling home from work one day to pick up. I was working in London at the time, and I was on a fixed wheel bike cycling through London. I was properly very fond of myself, bit of a hipster, all that sort of jazz. Anyway, it was raining and I hit a pothole, and in the process of hitting the pothole, cycling out in front of the bus, and shattered my collarbone, and then woke up about a day and a half later in hospital with, I think my mum was there. And I was like, I'm a 34-year-old man. Like, what's my mum doing here? You're like, you're in hospital, buddy. And I properly. But the mad thing about that story is, right? So I was in hospital. I was like, well, where's my bike? And everyone was like, no one knows, right? So I was like, honestly, did somebody steal my bike while I was prone on the concrete? Like, what's the world come to? I was unconscious and someone stole my fucking bike. Sorry, I didn't mean to curse.
No, it's fine.
So about 3 weeks later, our IT guy at the company I was working with, really, really lovely fella, he comes in. He's like, I think I found your bike online. And I was like, oh, someone trying to sell it? He's like, no, someone's trying to find you. And so this guy went onto this forum and he said, I saw this guy lying on the ground. The bus was pulled in. There's blood everywhere, all that sort of jazz. And I took his bike. The ambulance wouldn't take the bike. So I took it. It's in my office. If anyone knows him or knows the story, please. So the bike was completely fucked. But what an amazing thing to do. So 5 weeks later, I went back, got him a present, met him. He was a really nice guy. Said, I took it home because I figured if they left it on the curb, it'd be stolen. So it restores your I was like, humanity is fucked. Someone stole my bike and on the side road, right? But it turns out that humanity is actually constantly renewing and constantly redeeming itself, which is quite a nice thing to wake up to. Yeah,
absolutely. And it shows humanity. And this is not to get off on that tangent, but the world right now is so divisive, and we're against each other and all gamuts of life. And to find some humanity and humility in the world of people being like, I just need to help this guy. I don't even know who it is. I just need to help this guy. It really shows. I mean, it shows the Lord's face. That's how I would say it. It shows the Lord's face fairly well when stuff like that happens. I mean, that's a funny story though. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, my mom stayed with me for 2 weeks, so it was an interesting time in my life. She came over, and because I had a broken shoulder and all that sort of jazz, and then eventually went back to work after 2 or 3 weeks. But it was a mess.
Okay, so in the original, I can't get it on camera. Good Lord, on the 40 proof version, how old is it in 3 years? Is that 3 years?
3.5 years ex bourbon, and then a year in virgin oak char 4.
Okay.
Right, so so Irish whiskey has to be in barrel. You know this, right? It has to be in barrel for 3 years. There's an old wives' tale that has to be in barrels 3 years in a day, but that's nonsense. It's 3 years, and then it goes from being alcohol, new make spirit, to being whiskey on that day, right? So you can release it, but if and your whiskey listeners, right, they'll know that in ex-bourbon barrels, 3 years is not a lot of time to extract flavor, to extract color, to extract any of those good things, right? So you tend to see north of 5 years coming out of ex-bourbon. But from a business perspective, but also from a flavor perspective, we wanted to accelerate that. So after 3.5 years, it came out of the ex-bourbon, and then which were char 3, and then into virgin oak. So never used before, virgin oak for 1 year at char number 4. Now, we didn't know it was going to be a year. Like we tasted it at 6 months. It was great, but it still wasn't quite there. And Jordan's a genius, right? So Jordan was like, look, here's what I want to do. If we want that mid-palate feel that you're talking about, we really need to leave it another 6, and it'll do its job. And so that was, so it's 4.5-year-old juice. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So when you were telling your story, I got a little bit of this guy. I might be moving too fast, but it's okay. And this one to me really intrigued me because not that I'm a proof hound or anything like that, but you don't get a whole lot of cask strength Irish whiskey out there. And so that was really intriguing to me. Here, I'll move this guy out of the way and put him there. So tell us a little bit about the strength version while I kind of live in heaven.
Yeah. So once again, it's got to be honest, and it's got to be different, right? If we're going to do it now, we found this Argentinian company who were able to produce these the toads, right? Which were this was so cool, and our design company in Ireland who are just amazing. Slater Design. They came up with this design of the toad sitting over the letters, but really showcasing the liquid all the way. In a way, the white label on blend 1, if you think about it, kind of covers the liquid. So like the true cask strength. So, but what I said to Jordan was, look, let's actually show what's in the cask. And look, anything I say today isn't a criticism of what somebody else does, right? Everyone else does things for their own reasons, and I look for the good in those things, and I salute how hard it is for everyone to find the flavor profile that they want. But for me, as the principle, I wanted to do, if we were going to call it cask strength, I wanted it to be cask strength. So not overproof, not super strength, not anything. It's just what comes out of the barrel. So it's like, Jordan, here we go. What are we going to do? And he's like, well, let's take it out of the barrel, put it through a sieve to take out any wood. We're not going to chill filter it. Let's just see what it tastes like. And the two of us were like, wow, it's just butterscotch all day. And he's like, look, everyone is going to say to you that this is a crazy amount of alcohol. It's 63%, right? It's ridiculous. And I was like, yeah, okay, but it's cask strength. And we're going to tell people what it is, right? So, and he's like, well, yeah, but there's implications for tax. There's implications in certain countries that won't let you have north of 60%. So it's going to add complication to your business. And I was like, okay, but it's amazing. And it's true cask strength. And so we bottled it and off it went. And then like, lo and behold, I think it's sensational, right? But yeah, I obviously I do. It could be donkey piss, Randall, and I'd be like, it's just the best donkey piss you've had.
It's not donkey piss. I guarantee you that it's not.
So
it's amazing.
But so then we release it, and it's expensive, right? It's like $85, give or take, right? Market dependent. I think it's $80.99 in New York, and I think it could be $92 in Texas. There's structural reasons for that. Our price is quite stable, but there's structural reasons in certain states.
Yep.
So people, there was a bit of pushback from a distribution perspective and these are things you don't think about when you get in the business, right? They're like, look, you can buy Natterjack Blend 1, you can buy it for $34.99 in some markets. Why is somebody going to pay all that extra money for just a bit more alcohol in a different bottle? And I was like, well, the blend is different, the age is different, all that sort of stuff. And they're like, yeah, but it's too big a leap. We're going to say no. And a few states said that. And so I was like, and this is kind of, I'm going to say kind of September of last year. I'd been in the States about 8 months at that stage. Sales were sluggish. Sales were great from where they were in 2022, but from where we were projecting, they were behind. Right? And so that's the kind of new businesses. You're always trying to hit your number, right? Is where you said you're going to get to. And a lot of that's on me to my board and my investors. It's like, and cask strength kind of we hadn't won an award for it. It was just this expensive version of a whiskey that was a $35 whiskey. And so it didn't really capture the imagination. Then we won a double gold for it in San Diego. I think I'm saying that right. Now, if I've got that wrong and it was double gold in San Francisco, I'm sorry. I think it was San Diego. And I was like, okay, so maybe this cask strength is as good as I think it is. So then in December, the phone rings and it's Jim Murray from Jim Murray's Whiskey Bible. And he's like, I've got some good news for you. And I was like, yeah, of course it's Jim Murray. Yeah, I got past the other one, Jim. And he's like, no, it is. It's Jim Murray. And I was like, okay. Checked out the number. And it turned out it was Jim Murray. He's like, this is the best Irish whiskey I've tasted in years, right? This is my Irish whiskey of the year. It's my blended Irish whiskey of the year. It's 2 awards. It's 95.5 points. And I don't know how you've done it, but this is absolutely incredible. And what can I do to help you get the message out there? And I was like, this guy's a legend in the whiskey industry.
Absolutely.
So my dreams of donkey piss were gone at this stage, Randall.
Amen. Amen.
And I was like, wow, this changes the game for how we communicate about our whiskey, right? Because not to, like, the previous winners were like Redbreast 12 cask strength, which was like, I think 58%. And that was the previous winner. The one before that was Bushmills 30-year-old. They're all expensive whiskeys, right? They're north of $100, certainly, maybe north of $2.
Yep.
And that's pricey. And ours is $80, $85, right? And I was like, by design, I'm not going to say this one was luck. By design, mid-80s was the right price for this whiskey because it's incredible. It's limited. It's limited in how much of it we can produce. It's really cool. The bottle's fucking great. The Argentinians do an amazing job.
Absolutely, I love it. I love it.
Design team, and so it hit a note there. And you're right. There's not many cask strengths in a world of increasing cask strength or increasing cask strengths. There's not many Irish, and so I thought it was we did something right there to get that. Yeah. But it's true cask strength, so we can't mess around with it, right? And we won't. We will mess around with the blend, but show me your bottle, the bottle you have. Yeah. So that is the year we bottled it, right? That's quite a hard thing to get past our friends at the TTB because they're very against vintageizing spirits for all the right reasons, right? Spirits are inert. They're inorganic in the bottle. It's not aged, right? That's fine. Once it comes out of that, that makes sense. But Middleton have their blended number on the front, and so did we. So it has captured and bottled in that year, but it allows us to create a line. Now, you've got 2023 there in front of you. So we'll do a 2024, 25, 26. And so that will become a vertical tasting of how Natterjack, both as a business, but also as our flavor profiles and as our understanding of what our consumers like and want, continues to grow. And we look forward to that developing over the next 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely. And I can tell you right now, just sitting here smelling and sipping on this, it is one of, and it's not just because you're sitting right in front of me. This is one of the best Irish whiskeys I've had. I love Redbreast Cask Strength. It has some darker notes, whereas this has some lighter notes. But this one, to me, it has just enough burn on your tongue to where it's like, hello. But then it's not one of those off-putting where like, oh, Lord. And I'm waiting to drink it down a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it and see if it opens something else up. But like, it just gives you so much flavor. It's everything that's in the original ramped up to 10, obviously, and which is so cool. And is it single pot still, or is it some?
No, it's a blend. So malt, again, the malt is distilled in copper pots, and the green is in a column. So
yeah, I mean it's amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you. It's also, it doesn't drink like 63%, like 126 proof, right?
No, it does not.
And that for me is like something incredible happens. So you take a big cube of ice, big rock, you put it in a glass, give yourself a decent pour and sit for a couple of hours sipping. As that dilution happens, it tells its own story. The flavor profiles change over time, much like maybe the inverse way wine does, right? As wine opens up in the glass, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think Jordan once again has just done an incredible job.
Yeah, no. That's one of the things I love. I love to do. I love to get a good pour, put it on, especially now that we're getting into spring. And I like to go sit out on the porch, let the dogs run around, and just sit there with a big old rock and some whiskey and just enjoy the day, enjoy the cool breeze. And I mean, man, you could sit with that for hours, and just kind of pick it apart, all the little details, and as it evolves through the dilution process. Like, yeah, I mean, I can't wait to sit down with this, and go from there. So about the toad, I know there's a story about the toad. Tell us a little bit about that, because obviously that's your trademark right there. Tell us a little bit about that if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a huge part of the story, right? So it's called the Natterjack toad. It's the only toad indigenous to Ireland, but it's a very Irish toad. It cannot hop, it has to walk, and it cannot swim, it drowns. So it does things its own way to survive. So now it survives. It's endangered, but each year it survives, and it became our spirit animal for those sort of reasons, right? It was like, we didn't realize when we started this business how much fight it was going to take to get where we are now, how much thick skin, how much bad mouthing, how much all those things that go on in every business. And that's not me crying. I'm sure I've done it myself, right? But that the resilience that toad has is very emblematic of the resilience we've shown as an organization and the struggles we've been through to get here. But also, and this I found out after we'd named it Natterjack, but the Natterjack toad has a 3-year gestation from toadlet. So from little toad, they're called toadlets, to fully grown toad. Whiskey takes 3 years to get from new make spirit to whiskey, right? Well, I mean, why did no one else think of this? Secondly, it has a mating call that can be heard 2 kilometers away, like some of the best whiskey drinkers, and it's nocturnal. Like, and in a world where you can text anyone, mating calls can be heard hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, right? But a mating call can be heard 2 kilometers away in the real world. It's quite something. And then also it's nocturnal, like the best whiskey drinkers, right? And it's basically a whiskey toad. And a friend of mine, Kelvin Mann, who's an incredible artist, he's a New Zealand guy based in Ireland. He drew the toad for me, and he's like, "Here you go." And it blew my mind when he drew it, and we've got the illustrations in the office, and they're absolutely amazing. But it was like, once again, when I took that to designers, they're like, you can't grow a brand with an illustration like this, right? This is a world of vectorized images, because you need to be able to scale it up to put on a bus, or you need to be able to shrink it down to go on a stamp. And you can't do that with this. So a few designers said no to working with us. And I was like, but there's something about this toad that I want on the bottle. And everyone's like, no. And you're like, let's just do it, right? All right, maybe I'm wrong. And it turns out that when you see, and that's a lesson to all of us, right? Is experts telling you, and I don't want that to come across the wrong way, but industry people telling you that something you're doing is wrong because the way the industry works is a sign that you're doing the right thing. Because the industry in general doesn't innovate outside of its comfort zone. It can't. It owns the space. Innovation has to come from people who aren't thinking the way the big players are. And that's everything from bicycles to cars. Like Elon Musk at Tesla, right? He didn't come out, he wasn't a Ford worker who was like, I'm going to make an electric car, right? Right. And I'm not comparing myself to Elon Musk. What I'm saying is innovation doesn't come from the inside of those organizations, even through their innovation arms, because their innovation arms have to answer to shareholder, all that sort of jazz. So when people were saying no to us about the toad, about the name, about Natterjack, about Irish whiskey's place names and surnames that stick with that, we always pushed to do something not crazily different, Randall, like slightly different. It doesn't. Yeah. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We just got to put our own individual streak on it. Yeah,
absolutely. Because it's still Irish whiskey. It's still Irish whiskey. It's just Irish whiskey with a little bit of an attitude, which the Irish are known to have a little bit of an attitude to begin with. So it just gives it a little bit It's an American kick to an Irish whiskey, and it shows in the bottle, in the design, in the cool way that the bottle is shaped. It's like almost apothecary type. I mean, it's just the way. I mean, obviously your marketing, is amazing. And I just saw a Instagram reel or something that y'all did recently where you had people putting stickers, Natterjack stickers all over things, which is awesome. Like, to where people can go out and be like, hey, spot the toad. Where are you going to find him next? Kind of like make it a game, which is really cool because yes, it's about the whiskey. It's about what's in the glass, but it's also about the story. And that's why I wanted to have you on, for one. But another reason is like, it's about the whole concept of it, the trials, the tribulations, the good, the bad, the ugly sometimes, that's what it's about. But then when your product in the glass can meet that, you got a winning. And so I will tell you right now, I am a fan, and I will support you however I can, whatever that means in my capacity. I will support you until I can't anymore, until you decide to move on to another venture, which I hope you don't.
No, I don't. Like I was saying to one of the team there, we were talking about, we're hiring. We've added Grant. We've got a national sales director in the US. We've got Vanessa does our marketing, and we're growing, and it's just amazing. I was talking to someone about it, and they were like, "Yeah, well, we need to make sure this, that, and the other in the business." And I was like, "Well, who do I call if I've got a problem with HR?" And they're like, "Well, you can't quit. That's it. Yeah, there's no door for you, my friend. Either we fire you or you stay where you are. There's no quitting." But just to go back to something you said there, right? Like, if a big house releases a new brand, they'll go aspirational quite often, right? It's like, this is and they'll align with celebrities. And that's a big thing in spirits at the moment. We're not aligned with a celebrity, right? So, but it's always the kind of that aspiration. Now, for me, Natterjack is aspirational because I'm not a genius, Randall. Like, this is spit, sawdust, and a medium idea, right? And if I can do this, absolutely everyone can do it with their business idea. Not necessarily the Irish whiskey, but the point is, if all you've got to do is have the energy and the passion behind what you do, and you can go and make it your life. You can work really hard to get it, and you do have to work hard. There's no way around that. But this is achievable for your listeners and for anyone who looks at starting a business and what life might be like. So you just got to recognize you're going to get your teeth kicked in every so often. If you're okay with that, well.
But isn't that life? Isn't that life? Yeah. Anytime you go to strive a little bit forward, next thing you know, and I don't know, guys, and I'm sorry if you guys can hear this, they're actively replacing my roof on the house right now because we had a huge hailstorm, and the insurance said they're going to drop me if I don't, So it's like, shit happens. You got to just deal with it and move forward. It's life, and unfortunately, life ain't always beautiful, but it's a beautiful ride. Sorry, that's a Gary Allan song, but it's a good song.
I got the reference. Yeah.
So I mean, it's really cool to see, and I'm really excited to see you guys' future, being that you are a newer brand. Seeing what you have projected for 5 years. If I don't know if you know anything about that, if you want to talk about that a little bit, like more branding, more products, anything like that.
So next month we release a project I've had to think about for quite some time. So back in 2020, I called up the person managing the barrels, and I asked them, where was the whiskey we disgorged a year ago? So it had been a year in ex-bourbon, virgin, and I thought we disgorged it. And he said, well, it's still in barrel. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean it's still in barrel? We never took it out. And I was like, well, look at our email from whatever date. And I went back, oh man, there was a lot of hand wringing. But at this stage, COVID was going on. I was like, whatever, like disgorge it now. I can't use it for Natterjack. The blend is completely different, right? And we're getting traction. I can't now go to all my distributors and say, right, you know that flavor profile you liked? This is a completely different whiskey, and I don't know if it's any fucking good, right? So I was in a really tight spot with that. I was like, look, just take it out of barrel. We'll deal with it later. So we're releasing it in April. Yeah, it's just cleared customs 2 days ago, and it's called Natterjack the Mistake, because some of the best things in life are mistakes, and let's own it, right? Let's not. And here's the thing, right? What the marketer and no, that's wrong. What the clever person would do here is they'd say, right, we have crafted our best whiskey yet, right? They would say, it's been a passion project of mine since day one to produce this, heavily oaked, and we took a punt on it, and amazing. Bollocks, right? We left it in the barrel, our mind was elsewhere, and now I think it's our best whiskey. Like, I do, but it was completely a mistake. So it's called Natterjack the Mistake.
So is it a single barrel?
No, it was 46 barrels. That's how big the mistake was. Like, I was like, that's all of my whiskey.
That's a pretty big mistake.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty big mistake.
So it's an allocated product. It comes over. We've played around. With some great design. I'll share them with you, and you can put them up. But we've got like the labels are a mistake. The whiskey was a mistake. It's called the mistake. And it was interesting when we tried to get label approval. The Irish Department of Agriculture were like, look, mistakes don't paint the industry in great light. And I was like, well, come on, right? Like, we're trying to tell a story here, and Irish people are telling stories all the time. Like, we made an incredible whiskey. Like, okay, you know what? Have at it. So that will release in our markets. We're in 16 markets, I think. So in our markets in the next couple of weeks. About that. So if cask strength's about $85, this is mid 50s. It's a really cool bottle. Does the video go out? Can I share a picture?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, the video will go out on YouTube and Patreon.
So if I hit present and I hit a share screen, does that work? Yes. Okay, let me just get that, and I will. See
if you can do it.
Let's see. I don't want to take people's time, so share screen.
It's all good. I've got the time if you have it. You gave me whiskey. I'm good to go. And I can't wait to try that one. I gotta make sure I get my hands on that one, because that sounds really amazing.
We'll get you some. So can you see that there?
On the stage, right there.
Yeah.
We got it.
The code is offset on the
cover. Dude, that to me, that is so awesome. That is so awesome.
Thank you. And
so yeah, that's great.
And it was, Randall, it was genuinely, that label was a mistake. It came back from the printers when we were trying to look at different types, and it was on my desk for 2 years. And so when we came back to launching the mistake, I said to the design firm, I was like, what are we going to do? And they came up with some great ideas around glitches and they did some amazing work. But I was like, why are we overthinking this? We've got this incredible label that was an off print. Let's go with that. And they're like, okay. And so that releases in the States this month. That's actually, that picture there was taken when I took a sample bottle on a hunting trip I went on, a very Texan hunting trip I went on a couple of weeks ago.
Awesome. That's great. So if you don't mind, send me that picture so I'll make it the thumbnail for the podcast, because that to me, that's really cool that you're using something that was left in a barrel for longer than you wanted, and then now you're turning it into something, something that you said was the best so far. So, and if it's better than these two that are presenting tonight, I can't wait. I can't wait for that. That's amazing. Okay, so what else do we have? We had that. Okay, here's a good question. And I don't normally have these questions for you, but why? Why do this?
Super question. I worked in financial services, and this actually applies to lots of, it's not just financial services, right? You never actually hold what you work for, right? When I worked in a bar, I would sell someone a pint, I'd pull them a pint, I'd hand it to them, we'd have a conversation, there was an interaction, right? When I went and worked in financial services, I sat at a screen and I had instant messages, and every so often you'd see someone and all that sort of jazz. But it's almost once removed from reality. And so what I really wanted to do was build something. I wanted to own my own business, first off. I wanted to own my own business that produced a thing, a widget, a whatever, that I could stand over and say, I'm proud of this. And my background, my granddad had bars down in Tipperary in Ireland. My mum grew up in a pub. And I remember I said to him, you know, I want to own a pub. What do you think? What do you suggest? What do I need to know? What don't I know? And I'd grown up working down there and all that sort of jazz. And he was like, here's what I know. Don't buy a pub, right? Sell some beer to pubs. That's how you make money. And I was like, it's really interesting from a man who spent his entire life owning bars. He's like, sell them the beer. Now, look, that's an oversimplification of the conversation we had. He was a very bright man, and I took a lot from that conversation. It was like, do I want to face into the risks of trying to scale a restaurant or a bar business, or do I want to try and do something else? Now, I think probably when the wheels were coming off, I probably look back on that decision as being wrong. But now I think it's what I really wanted to do was produce something, and wine and spirits have been in my past, and the bar work is in my blood, and this was a great way to get into that and get out of the humdrum 9 to 5, which is what I essentially wanted to do. This was all before I had a family, Randall, and now, you know, back when I was working in financial services, I'd leave the house at 5:30 in the morning. You come back at 6-ish, unless you're out for pints. You come back at whatever time, right?
Yeah.
Now, I have young kids. The whiskey business doesn't get going too early in the morning, right? So I have my calls with Ireland at 5, and then I do breakfast for the kids before they go to school. I have this, like, the best of both worlds. And so I wanted the flexibility. I don't mind risk, first off. And I wanted the flexibility of running my own business, because that flexibility, if you're okay with the risk, there comes flexibility. That for me is the trade-off with working or owning a business. And that's kind of, and I knew what I wanted. I just didn't know if I could execute. So I needed to go and do it, and then did, and had many regrets. Actually, no, I have no regrets. I had many sleepless nights along the way.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I have owned my own business for this year will be my 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
I'm a plumber by trade. Been a master plumber for way too long, and been in the business for almost 25 years. And it's just one of those things to where, like, having the availability to say, hey, my son has a soccer game. I need to go to that. It's at 3:00. I'm breaking off. I'm sorry, you know. And now getting back into work and all this stuff, it's one of those things where you prioritize life, not around work. It's around family. It's around and you guys might be the first to hear this, and maybe you aren't, but I'm prioritizing this podcast, this part of my life above work. Now, it's obviously family first, but you know, like this to me is a passion, and I enjoy it and I love it. And getting to talk to people like you that I wouldn't normally talk to. Not that you're not a cool dude and I wouldn't hang out with you, we share a dram, but at the same time, I wouldn't meet somebody like yourself if I wasn't putting my neck out there. And like I told everybody on the podcast, 2024 is going to be a big year for this podcast. It's going to be huge. We're going to hit numbers that we were only dreaming about. I mean, we're not Joe Rogan, but we going to get there pretty fast.
Yeah. so you have to stick your neck out there to go and get it, right?
Absolutely. There's you have to have the fire in your heart to go and do it, and not be afraid to fall flat on your ass. And once you're not afraid to fall flat on your ass, you can get back up and be like, well, that sucked, and keep going, you know? So
yeah,
it's just one of those things. You know how many people, and this is not to talk about me, we're talking about you, but you know how many people that I contacted, just like yourself, that flat out didn't respond to an email, did all these things. And that wouldn't happen. And I actually applaud. I even had some that said, no, you don't fit our profile. That's fine. That's fine. At least let me know. Like, it's when they keep you hanging, and you're like, oh, well, maybe they're going to call me back. Well, they never call you back. They're not going to call you back. Stay in your lane, do your thing, and then they will look back and be like, oh, shit, they got Natterjack on? Okay, I need to think about them again. So it's one of those things where, like, you got to shoot your shot. I hate to say it like that, but you got to shoot your shot and then see what happens. And I feel like you guys are really striving at that in such a small time, which I know for you it probably feels like 100 years because these last couple of years you probably aged double what you normally would.
Yeah, absolutely.
But okay, so one of the things, and I know we had talked about this before we started recording, one of the things I wanted to do, because I support, and we talked about it before I even opened it, which is really cool. I love you guys' product and your brand and all of the things. I want to give out a 2-ounce sample of each one of these to a somebody who's listening. So it's all you have to do is comment, obviously like everything I'm doing. If you don't like it, get the hell out of here. And then comment Natterjack. Comment Natterjack. And you'll be in a couple of weeks, once this is posted. It might be a couple of weeks for this is posted. Once this is posted, in a couple of weeks, we'll have a winner. And if you want to talk about the other thing we talked about, your special.
Yeah. So if your customers, your listeners go on and become our customers on our website, natterjack.com, and you put in Aiden Special, that'll get you a discount code that will cover more than the shipping, all that sort of stuff, but it'll get you a discount, and thank you for the support. And there'll be a limited number of the mistake available on the website next few weeks, but like 20 bottles. It's going to be an allocated product. We've sold out of it realistically already. I have a bottle arriving today, which I'm supposed to do some tasting notes of this evening. Like, things get a little bit crazy when you put a limit on the numbers.
Absolutely. Yeah. The world loves allocation. They love allocation. I'm like, just give me the baseline. Like, I'm a Wild Turkey 101 guy, give me the baseline stuff. But yeah, I will have everything in the description below. And Aiden, I can't thank you enough for coming on and hanging out with me and talking. And stick on. I want to talk to you a little bit, obviously, about this mistake bottle, because I got to have that in my life, and I'm sure my listeners need me to have that as well. But before we go, I know I put your no, not that one. I put your website up. Go ahead and give some of your socials if you're that type of person.
Yeah, Natterjack Irish Whiskey on Instagram. There's not much on Twitter and TikTok. There is on Facebook. You'll find it, Natterjack Irish Whiskey. And then you can find it all through the website, natterjack.com.
And if you guys scroll their website, there's a bunch of really cool stuff. There's little videos and stuff like that. They're doing some really cool stuff. And I can't thank y'all enough for coming on. And make sure, and this is shameless plugs for me, I did start a Patreon. Let's go, patreon.com/whiskey-shaman. If you need to get in touch with me, whiskey-shaman-podcast@gmail. And thank you to the sponsors, Bad Motivated Barrels, which you can see them right behind me, and Z.SmithWhiskeyAndMixology. He's doing some amazing stuff with cocktails and bar restorations and stuff like that. Make sure you follow all of them. And Aiden, again, thank you very much for coming on. And we will be in touch very soon, because I feel like we're going to need to do another one of these real soon, because I feel like y'all are going big places, especially after I promote you and you get 3 more subscribers. No, I'm joking.
We'll take it. And also, as we always say, right, I'm in Texas and I'm Irish, so sláinte, y'all.
So sláinte, y'all.